I put away my Steam Deck, turned off my PlayStation 5 Pro, made sure that my PC wasn't used for anything other than streaming, got rid of all of my retro consoles, and by getting rid of, I just simply didn't use any of them, and went down to a Switch 2 for 30 days. And it was interesting. It sure was interesting. The first thing I felt was the Switch 2 felt like it's catching up. It feels like it's doing its best to try to play with us again. I mean, since the Switch 1 released, we had the Steam Deck and every other portable PC out there doing the job that we wanted it to do. Play games better. And the Switch 2 comes on the scene and goes, guess what? All those games that you want to play, look, Nintendo can do it too. And for me, I was like, well, do I want to buy Final Fantasy VII Remake for the however manyth time just to play it on Switch 2? And at first, no. But because of the challenge, I did. And I had mixed feelings about that, primarily because my mindset wasn't in the right space. You see, I have been playing games on PC, powerful PC, as well as a PlayStation 5 Pro. And so the performance level that I was able to achieve was far greater than what a measly Nintendo Switch 2 could do. And so I had to get my mind around the concept. JD, you don't have any other options. This is what most people have. One console. Having multiple handhelds, multiple ways to play just isn't realistic. And just financially extremely restrictive. I mean, PC gaming is expensive, console gaming is expensive, subscription services are expensive. Subscription service. Okay, small story about subscription services. Okay, so you guys know about this thing, my TV that I have. Well, my wife and I one night were like, okay, let's do date night. Well, we're upstairs in our room, and it took us 30 minutes to scroll through and try to figure out what movie we're gonna watch with the remaining time we have in our subscription services. And I was like, we ended up just watching Home Improvement. Great show, highly recommend. But a week prior, when we sat down to watch a movie, we just watched Lethal Weapon on VHS because that's what we had. That's it. Subscriptions aside, I realized something. Pretty interesting, that my gaming had become very contingent on decisions that I wasn't making. Yes, that I wasn't making. You see, I would spend countless hours agonizing over which is best, which way is going to be the most efficient, frames, all this stuff. You see, having a Steam Deck, you have a very, very specific kind of way that you look at playing video games. You're like, I can play it however Steam respects me as a gamer, and so you end up becoming quite fond of Steam. Well, as time goes on, the library splitting becomes more and more egregious. Is it going to run more optimized here? Is it going to run better there? You know, is Final Fantasy VII Remake going to work better in this capacity at this space? And these questions start arising. And it introduces this element of decision that I was becoming more and more tired of. And I've talked about it at length. I've definitely talked about the agonizing which place is the best place to play. A lot of this just simply isn't necessary and can't exist when all you have is one place to play. So of course, at first there was the novelty of it all. Oh my gosh, I'm playing everything on a Nintendo Switch. And for me, someone who's a giant fan of Nintendo, this was quite special. I very much so liked the fact that I was playing all my games on my Nintendo Switch 2, something that I spend a tremendous amount of money on. That being said, I started to feel the drawbacks. I started to feel a little bit of the having to repurchase a couple games I wanted to play, which there was a huge sale going on, so I was able to do that. Yes, anything for a video. But also, couldn't help but feel a little bit of the hardware limitations, so to speak. The first thing I felt, which unfortunately is like one of the worst things that can exist on something like a Switch 2, wasn't the underpowered nature of it, wasn't LCD versus OLED, it was actually the battery life. The battery life on the Nintendo Switch 2 it's very tough to deal with. It's something you have to manage. And as someone who was maining the Nintendo Switch 2, it was something I found to be a problem more than once, which is more than I ever wished to deal with. It was something where I had to consciously be like, I need to charge this thing if I plan to use it. If I leave it upstairs in my bedroom because I played, some Sea of Stars before bed, I need to make sure that I'm being very, very attentive and understanding, okay, in order for me to take this with me on the go, if for some reason I'm going to be playing this on the go, I need to make sure that I charge it. This is not something I really had to deal with that much with the Steam Deck, and certainly not going to happen with something like a PlayStation 5 because it's just at home. But with the Switch 2, that's something I definitely had to deal with. But that was something that I could look past because you just learn, right? When it comes to gaming, it's lifestyle. And so with gaming and being lifestyle, you learn what parts of it are you going to have to adapt so that it works a little bit better in your lifestyle. And the battery part, I got used to. And for those out there who are like, frames don't matter, they do matter. They do matter, especially when you're dealing with something like another game remake. You see, I played Final Fantasy VII Remake for the first time ever on a PlayStation 5. I was lucky enough to have waited, yes, that long. I didn't play it on PlayStation 4, and on my PlayStation 5, I played it at 60 frames per second. And so when I booted up Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Nintendo Switch 2 to play it at 30 frames per second on my TV, it took a little bit more than just a few minutes to get used to it. In fact, it took a lot more, and I'm still working on it. But the question has nothing to do with performance. It has to do with, is the Nintendo Switch a viable single console? And as I played it more and more, I started to envy the restriction. I started to actually appreciate this is all I can deal with. And I started to feel that living room VHS moment that I've been seeking and seeking and seeking for the past, 3-4 years. You see, I think for a lot of us, we're looking for that perfect system. We're looking for the device, the one to rule them all, the single bag, as a lot of us EDC players talk about. But it doesn't exist, and anyone in EDC knows there's no such thing as the perfect bag. But in purposefully restricting myself down to just the Nintendo Switch 2, the question that I had, the question I posed at the very beginning of this, the question was, can the Nintendo Switch 2 be a one and only? And as I gamed more and more throughout the month, middle of the month was the hardest. I'm like, man, I really want to play a little bit of this. I want to play a little bit of that. It slapped me back on track. It slapped me back into the gaming space that I've been looking for. That feeling of intention, that feeling of like, this is what I want to play. When it's just the Nintendo Switch 2, and that's all that's there, I realized I don't have to make those decisions, those juggles, like, oh, am I going to play a little bit on the Steam Deck? Am I going to play a little bit on the Switch 2? Oh, my Steam Deck is for my blank. My Switch 2 is for my blank. Now, the thing about this that I find to be so special is this could actually exist with a Steam Deck. Well, to a certain degree, you're not going to get these guys. You know, like Zelda, Mario, and Donkey Kong, and all those guys. The biggest thing I learned about this little experiment of, is the Nintendo Switch 2 actually able to do it, is it did come out late. I believe that the Nintendo Switch 2 came out late. Here, getting close for a second. I believe that the Nintendo Switch 2 came out during a time where performance is currently being chased. When you can play a game at twice the performance, 3 times the performance, it's tough. It's tough. You start to have to compromise. And I think that is the biggest thing that I learned through this experiment is when you have everything at your fingertips, anytime you do something, you are compromising. You want to play on a PlayStation 5 Pro? Great. You're just going to play that in your office or on the main TV. You want to play on a Lenovo Legion Go S? Awesome. You're going to have a chunky boy with a lot of fan noise. You want to play on a Steam Deck? Sweet. It's going to be a good enough experience, but you're not going to play any of the first-party Nintendo games. But lastly, you want to play on Nintendo Switch 2? Rad. The games from Nintendo Switch 1 aren't all perfect, and the performance is not even close to what you can get with half the other things you might have laying around your house. But the question isn't, is the Nintendo Switch 2 the best handheld out there? I mean, it can't be. Everything else is more powerful than it is. But that's not what's important. What's important is, through those 30 days, it's all I could play. And I'd say about 3/4 into the challenge, my joy came back. It fixed it. I now just feel like, okay, the desire to play it better is kind of a waste. Because when you look to play games better, you end up not playing anything at all. So, I hope this meant something to you. It certainly meant something to me, and the next challenge I have is going to be a fun one. I can't wait to share that with you guys too. Alright, play more, and be kind. Cheers.